Welcome to my top 5 Pokemon Generations. Let's get started. Number 5. Generation 5. Although Gen 5 has a variety of Pokemon and a pretty cool story, I didn't really have it catch on to me. It just didn't have that certain vibe I always got from playing a Pokemon game. Though it has good graphics and nice music, I didn't really like the fact that you couldn't catch other generation Pokemon until the late game, and that for one was a real bummer for me. It also takes this spot because I feel that our generations have more better in them. Sure, Gen 5 implemented triple battles and rotation battles, but I'm gonna be honest here, I'm not a big fan of those. I also feel that the region itself is sort of like a symmetrical map. Unlike the other regions where it seems like an actual map, not like a mirrored image. One more good feature about Gen 5 is you could challenge the Elite Four in any order. I quite enjoyed that feature, and that wraps it up for Gen 5. Number 4. Generation 2. This probably comes as a surprise because Gen 2 has innovated the Pokemon series so much that it's usually a fan favorite. And yes, I can agree that these games are fun, but the others are just superior. What Gen 2 brought to the table of Pokemon has been incredible. 100 new Pokemon, split the special stat, added Dark and Steel to even out the balance of overpowered Psychics, and much more great features. Though it was only until the remakes of Heart Gold and Soul Silver that I really felt its full potential. I really do like the Generation 2 Pokemon. It even holds some of my personal favorites. And since I never really grew up with Gen 2, it doesn't have much of a nostalgia for me. Unlike some of the other generations, I could go on about the good features of Gen 2, like I can revisit Kanto and such, but most of them are just little things. I also like how you can battle Red. And that wraps up number 4. Number 3. Generation 3. I feel that Gen 3 was a huge success for the Pokemon series, and I also feel that these games are underrated. The music is great, it was an update to the way Pokemon look, added double battles, and even added the Battle Frontier. This region had the best legendaries by far, which include Rayquaza, Kyogre, Groudon, the Regis, etc. These games also had a pretty cool story, and the characters that were developed throughout the game were pretty cool as well. The Pokemon are great, and even though I haven't played much of Generation 3, I've still seen lots of content on it and know a lot about it. Some of the negatives / complaints I have with the generation is that there's way too much water-filled areas. And I'm not a huge fan of water in Pokemon games. Some other things I kind of dislike is the fact that it can get a bit confusing sometimes to navigate through Hoenn. Though that isn't much of a problem. I think that wraps up Generation 3 / number 3. Number 2. Generation 1. This is the generation that started it all. Without it, Pokemon wouldn't be what it is today. And I am proud to say that though the games that debuted this gen were flawed and somewhat bad, they were also what set the standards for Pokemon and gave it a blueprint for success. I like Gen 1's Pokemon, and I also like the story. Though it can be a bit repetitive, it is still a very fun game to play. And the remakes just perfected what had been placed down to set the series' standards. There are many cool and great aspects about Gen 1, like how you and your rival are competing for the top spot. Though the games that debuted this gen were unbalanced and flawed, I can look past and say, if it wasn't for them, what would Pokemon be today? Number 1. Generation 4. What a beautiful masterpiece. When I first got my DS, I was able to pick 3 games, those being Super Mario 64 DS, Animal Crossing Wild World, and Pokemon Diamond. Ever since I started playing Diamond, Till now, I've been addicted. Sure, there was a delay in the battle between animation, but the positives overrule the negatives. This game was full of color and was surely waited for on an update of Pokemon since the Generation 3 releases. The music in this generation was so great, I sometimes just listen to it without actually playing the game. I love new Pokemon added, and another great feature is that they added the physical and elemental stuff to attacks. Though back then, when I was 7 or 8, I didn't really care about stuff like that. It could be quite important now, and among all of the sister games like Crystal, Yellow, Emerald, and such, I think that Gen 4's sister game is really what sealed the deal for me. Though it only added a few main features, it greatly improved on some flaws with the games that debuted this generation. The map of Sinnoh is so great and so wonderful, fair-sized map, and doesn't have too much of one thing in it. The legendaries announced in Sinnoh were so creative that I loved them so much. Most of my favorite Pokemon were announced in this generation as well. And there's so much more I can talk about in Gen 4. The gym leaders were great, beautiful story, and even quite challenging Elite Four. All in all, Generation 4 is what I can call a pretty awesome Pokemon generation. And I must say that wraps up this top 5 Pokemon generations. Thanks for watching, and see y'all later.